Those inequities have continued to persist. And as a result, the gap between the have and the have-nots has only widened. So while much of the focus has been on George Floyd's killing, it also has been on the systemic racism in law enforcement. We can't turn back a blind eye. We can't turn a blind eye to the systemic issues in other parts of our society. So, therefore, the caucus, the African American Task Force, comes in, and our task force will look at the areas such as education, healthcare, mental health, housing, business and economic development, access to capital lending institutions, community empowerment, voting rights, environmental justice, community violence, and the criminal justice system. Today, we are meeting to address the purpose, the membership, subcommittees, and format of the task force and how it's going to work. We will work with Delaware State University and other HBCUs in leveraging knowledge and expertise to undertake extensive research into the ongoing disparities in this route. Our work during the next several months will be difficult, but we must remain focused for the long term and those goals. These barriers didn't happen or spring up overnight. It took decades for us to come up to speed in some areas. However, we look forward to addressing these issues and working towards them to see what we can make and how we can make the state of Delaware better. I'd like to, at this particular time, just to go over the purpose that is here in front of you. And it says that the task force was created in FY21 Grant and Aid Legislation, Section 39 of the Senate Bill 260. It's charged to study and make recommendations to the Delaware General Assembly and the governor regarding inequities and experience the African Americans in Delaware, including the following, which I had mentioned earlier. Our task force membership. The Speaker of the House chose two, and also the President Pro Temp. The Speaker of the House chose myself, Stephanie T. Bolden, for co-chair, and Jane Hovington. President Pro Temp chose Cleon McCauley, Esquire, as co-chair, and Carmen Jordan Cox. The minority membership chose Representative Kevin Hensley, and the Senate minority leader chose Larry Austin. The task force membership, as listed here, are members of the Congressional Black Caucus, not congressional, the Delaware Black Caucus. We wish we were congressional. Each and every member of the Delaware Black Caucus is a participant in this particular task force. So you have myself as co-chair, Representative Frank Cook, Representative Nnamdi Chukwocha, Representative Sherry Dorsey Walker, Representative Kendra Johnson, Representative Melissa Minor Brown, Senator Darius Brown, and Senator Elizabeth Tizzy Lockman. At this point, the task force co-chair, Mr. Cawley, Esquire, will take over.
Good morning, all. Over the next few minutes, I'll address the remaining task force members, and I will go through a brief summary of our deliverables. Serving by virtue of their position, myself representing Delaware State University, our Attorney General, Kathleen Jennings, DHSS, Cassandra Codes Johnson, Department of Human Resources, Keith Hunt, Department of Labor, Secretary Saran Cade, DNREC, Secretary Sharon Garvin, DSCYF, John Stevenson, Department of Transportation, Wendy Henry, DSHA, Director Anas Benatti, the Statistical Analysis Center, Spencer Price, Department of Safety and Homeland Security, Kimberly Chandler, the Metropolitan Wilmington Urban League, Simone Philpotts, National Coalition of 100 Black Women, Ray Jones Avery, the NAACP of Delaware, Richard Smith, and the Interdenominational Ministers Action Council, Reverend Vincent Oliver. So with regards to deliverables, our first deliverable we're actually acting upon today. It was to hold our initial organizational meeting and discuss our structure and our deliverables. I would say to all of our task force members and the public, please read Section 39, Senate Bill 260. That is the governing legislation which has formed us. And as our Representative Bolden spoke, this was established by the 151st General Assembly. We're here to do, or this task force is charged with making findings and making recommendations after they study and report on the inequities within the socioeconomically marginalized African American communities. To do that, I would impress on our task force. We have about 27 members, but we can only make action, or we can only deliver on our actions if we have a quorum. That quorum is a majority of the members. So at each of these meetings, we need 14 of our members to be present. As I can see today by the amount of folks on, that should not be a problem, but it's part of my duties to mention it. Next on our deliverable, or in the future, what we've been requested to do is to have a final report of the task force that we submit to the President Pro Tem of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives. We know as a task force that the work that we do is the rubber will meet the road with our subcommittees. That's where each of the focus points that Representative Bolden laid out: education, healthcare, housing, business and economic development, community empowerment, environmental justice, community violence, and criminal justice. That's where all of those topics are going to be really delved in, and those findings and recommendations will be submitted to this body through those subcommittees. To make this manageable, we've broken those subcommittees up into 4 different categories. The Economic Opportunity Subcommittee, which will focus on business and economic development, community empowerment, and education reform. The Health and Welfare Subcommittee, that will focus on healthcare inequities, and including mental health care. And the Safety and Justice Subcommittee, which will focus on criminal justice and community violence. Lastly, there's the Infrastructure and Environmental Subcommittee that will focus on housing and environmental justice. We're requesting that each of our chairs of our subcommittees have no more than 9 members on their committee. If that committee needs to be larger, then we're asking them to come back to this body and request to enlarge that committee. We're also asking that not all findings and recommendations be held to the end of this process. We will get an exact date of when we need to submit our final report, and we'll report that out to all of the subcommittees, and we'll have that information for the next task force meeting. But what we don't want to do is wait till the last few meetings to go through all of our findings and recommendations. So we're asking our subcommittee chairs, as they find, or as they get to findings and recommendations, to bring it to the next body meeting so we can discuss them in full. With that said, the next agenda item even before we get to our future meetings, is for each of our subcommittee chairs to give us at least a few minutes on their subcommittee and what their expectations are. If we could start with Representative Dorsey Walker.
Good morning, everyone, and a special thank you to our co-chairs, Representative Stephanie T. Bolden, as well as Cleon Cawley. and our founder of the Delaware Legislative Black Caucus, Representative Stephanie T. Bould, and to all the members of the Delaware Legislative Black Caucus, and to our chair, Senator Darius Brown, and to you, our constituents, we say thank you. We were able to put this Justice for All agenda together as a result of hearing the cries from our community. We're asking that as we move forward, in particular with the Economic Empowerment Committee, what we're looking to do is ensure that there's equity as it pertains to procurement from the city to the county to the state. We know that one of the ways that people are able to build wealth is through economic empowerment opportunities. So what we desire to do is ensure that we are creating those opportunities for those in our state. I don't want to be before you too long, but I shall be requesting that my committee is a little larger than 9. I already have 14 members. So what I'll do is circle back to our co-chairs and see if I can get relief or the blessing to add the additional members. And thank you for this opportunity to speak.
I'll say we'll be very flexible with that. Also, we know that there are many members of the public who are requesting to assist. So we're also gathering those names, and we'll provide those names to all of the subcommittees so that they can reach out to them directly and get more assistance for their subcommittees.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Health and Welfare.
Good morning, everyone. So the Health and Welfare Subcommittee will identify areas of racial health disparities and inequities in our entire state. And when I say health and welfare, that's a huge umbrella. So under that umbrella, we're discussing overall health, mental health, maternal health, access to healthcare, the social determinants, the barriers and inequities, and there's so many other areas that have contributed to the health disparities that exist in communities of color. So our plan is to implement solutions to improve the health and overall quality of life for African Americans in our state.
Safety and Justice.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. Good morning, everyone. It's a great privilege to be here and to speak on behalf of this subcommittee, which we truly feel is so needed, desperately needed to assist in our efforts of truly trying to create justice for all throughout the state of Delaware. Our social and justice, really looking at community violence and then justice reform. And we're not only initially thinking of picking up where we left off as a body. Our General Assembly had a huge undertaking of many reform bills and named in honor of Representative J.J. Johnson. It is our hope and our effort that we will not only pick up, but advance many of those bills that weren't brought forward through this subcommittee. In addition, this subcommittee will seek to advance just our overall goals of our Delaware Legislative Black Caucus, looking at items in reference to gun and community violence. We really truly want to create advocacy as well as community action plans and legislation that will help us to address the saturation of our streets with illegal guns in order to keep the street guns out of our communities and out of the hands of our children. Throughout the session, we will continue to meet the demands. Our subcommittee will hold meetings, hearings regarding community violence. We will bring in experts and policy creators and practitioners and try to inform the community through education. Our goal is to create safer communities throughout our state by building alliances regarding gun and community violence. So many, like my own family, so many families throughout our state know the forever lasting pain of gun violence due to the tragic loss, as well as the lack of security that so many of our communities throughout our state feel that they're truly under siege, including many sections of my own district. These issues are of grave concern to the Delaware Legislative Black Caucus. Much of this violence is not only committed against African Americans, but also perpetrated by African Americans and other people of color. This is a major issue in the disparities and how the impact of community violence impact our areas. It is our intent to work with our community, nonprofit, faith-based, as well as local law enforcement offices and agencies, the ATF, Homeland Security, our Attorney General's office, concerning the current law enforcement efforts to address community violence, what needs to be enhanced and improved, to look at the current measures that are working and how can we replicate them and sustain success over time. Gun violence is a growing threat in our state, especially here in our city of Wilmington. It has been recognized as a public health crisis by the CDC. We want to look at what preventative measures are in place to aid our community. We'll review the recommendations and expand upon the recommendations that the CDC provided in 2015. And we will work to create implementation efforts so that we can implement those recommendations by working with the federal, state, and local agencies together to create and align a crime and gun violence reduction vision throughout our state, utilizing science and data to develop strategies to address the underlying focuses that contribute to gun violence. It is our effort of this subcommittee to advance legislative action towards creating safer communities throughout the state of Delaware. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Infrastructure and environment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Madam Chair, and just say thank you to all of my colleagues on the Black Caucus and all my colleagues on this task force and everyone who is tuning in and will participate. I'm very excited to be a part of this task force and in particular to be chairing the Infrastructure and Environment Subcommittee. I think issues related to infrastructure and environment are often overlooked when it comes to the welfare of our Black and Brown communities in Delaware, but it is a crucial component of health and well-being, of access to things like safety and justice and economic opportunity. So I'm really looking forward to and expect that our work is going to cover obviously what was explicitly stated in the bill, that we will be looking at least at housing and environmental justice concerns related to Black Delawareans and experiences that they're having with disparities in terms of those. And I think naturally we'll likely also be pulling in issues around transportation, utilities and such. Essentially, all of these topics that fit well together under the umbrella of infrastructure and environment to really look at the physical space that is inhabited by Black Delawareans and the ways that you know, we reside and move around our state, and the ways that those current structures and policies can either support or inhibit that ability to attain good health, to attain good economic opportunities and stability and peace of mind that everyone wants. And we know Black communities often struggle to attain. So, you know, we'll be looking, of course, at how do we come out of the historical hole that's been dug for our communities, the legacies of things like redlining, the building of highways through once viable and vibrant communities, and the changes and impacts that flowed from that, the likelihood of our communities to live near things like landfills, industrial sites, and so on and so forth. So my subcommittee is still in development in terms of membership, but I will of course be pulling together, it'll be hard to stick to just 9, I'm sure, but community advocates and experts in those areas, and of course working with leaders from our state agencies, such as DENREC, DELDOT, and DSHA, to analyze current situation and status quo and to develop some policy recommendations in order to set ourselves on a path for improvement. And of course, also working with our local and federal partners as needed to seek remedies. And so that's what the Infrastructure and Environment Subcommittee will be doing. And I'm really looking forward to working with that team and all of you to advance some solutions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So those are the subcommittees that were identified in the legislation. I would say to all of our task force members that if there are subcommittees that you believe should be offered up to the full body and created, please offer them up to the body and we can have a discussion on that. I would also say to all of our chairs and all of our members of the subcommittees, all of these topics overlap in some way. So let's make sure that we're having discussions with our peers so we're not duplicating our efforts. We have a lot of work to do, and we want to make sure that our efforts aren't duplicated. It is the goal of Representative Bolden and myself to meet with each subcommittee chair before the end of this month to make sure that we're providing you with everything you need to be successful, and to make sure that any questions are being addressed, and to make sure that you have the resources on your subcommittee. If we need to reach out to other folks to gain those resources, we're happy to do so. The goal here, obviously, is for us all to enjoy this process, but also to make it fruitful, and to make sure that we come with the most extensive findings and recommendations possible. And to do that, we have to do it collectively. Before the question and answer session, we were hoping that each task force member could spend a moment introducing themselves so that the outside world, I'm sure they've heard your names, but they can learn a little bit more about you and what you bring to this task force. I'm looking to see how we do that in an orderly fashion. Maybe we can go back to the slides that introduced the individuals, and we can go.
We can start with the Secretary of Health and Social Services.
Good morning, everyone. I am Cassandra Coase Johnson, and I'm representing the Department of Health and Social Services. I'm actually the Associate Deputy for the Delaware Division of Public Health. I provide oversight for many of the programs and services that are available to the community in the state of Delaware. For example, we provide oversight support for school-based health centers in our state. Maternal and child health section reports up through my office. Health system protection, which offers protection for food establishments, etc., reports up through me. Our Office of Rural Health reports to me. Our Data and Informatics department, our health promotion and disease prevention sections all report up through me. So really excited to be a part of this work.
Thank you so much. And I did not mean to overlook our distinguished Attorney General. Attorney General Kathy Jennings, please.
Thank you, Representative Bolden. Good morning, everyone. I am Delaware's Attorney General, and I think you know the Attorney General's office best in the various roles that you play for state government and in the community. As you know, my passion has been to reform the criminal justice system and make it fair and equal for everyone, remove racial disparities, be a less punitive environment and a more rehabilitative environment for everyone in Delaware. The Attorney General's office also handles a number of other subjects that are so important to this task force. Among them, we are involved in environmental litigation. We are involved in civil rights litigation and rooting out public corruption. We work closely with every agency represented on this task force and represent those agencies. And so it's a pretty broad area of jurisdiction that we have here in Delaware. And I really welcome the opportunity to work with all of you on these important goals.
Sorry, I thought I was on. Department of Human Resources, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Keith Hunt, and I am representing the Delaware Department of Human Resources as Secretary Sandra Johnson's designee. My functional role in the department is Chief Diversity Inclusion Officer in the executive branch, reporting to Sandra Johnson. Although HR is a really functional, internal-facing organization, we believe that we have expertise and perspective that we can offer to this task force. And, as I look at the lineup of committees, I want to be sure that we are participating fully, and would like for the committee chairs to reach out to us as you see fit, or if however the process may evolve, that we may reach into a subcommittee to understand how we can may best contribute to this. And just speaking personally and professionally, I think this is a very, very important task force. Very happy to see that this has been put in place, and look forward to participating fully in any way, in any capacity, to help make sure that our goals and objectives are met. Thank you.
Thank you. And next, our Secretary of Labor, a Delaware State graduate, also have to put that in there.
Thank you.
Ron.
Thank you, Representative. My name is Saran Cade, Secretary of Labor for the state of Delaware. Looking forward to working with the members of this task force and identifying some necessary recommendations that we can introduce to the General Assembly, and maybe some things that we can do internally within our agencies. In previous role, I served as Secretary or the Director of the Division of Economic Development. And so now over at the Department of Labor, I'm really looking forward to working on and helping to identify some of the economic opportunities that may exist for community uplift. So thank you for having me and inviting me to participate, and I look forward to the work ahead.
Of course, another favorite person of mine, we're glad that he's able to be here, is Sean Garvin, DENREC.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. Really appreciate the opportunity to be engaged. I am the Secretary of the Department of Natural Resources and Environmental Control. We cover air, waste, water, parks, fishing, boating. Pretty much we are your backyard agency. And there's a number of things that we've been working on, and this task force, I think, really plays into that. One is making sure that our department is reflective of the communities that we represent. And then the other big piece, which is right in one of the names of the subcommittees, is environmental justice. And what we're really trying to do is not have environmental justice be an activity that we do, but be really the foundation of how we go about doing our business. And so I really look forward to the conversation. I also, Dana Cobb, who is the director of our Division of Climate Conservation and Energy, is also going to be working with me in this area, as well as some other people in the department. So I'm really grateful that we have a seat at the table, and look forward to the conversation.
Mr. Stevenson, can you introduce yourself as well?
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. My name is John Stevenson. I am representing the Department of Services for Children, Youth, and their Family, commonly known as the Kids Department. I serve under the leadership of Secretary Josette Manning. The Kids Department represents 4 divisions: the Department of Management Support Services, the Division of Prevention and Behavioral Health, the Division of Family Services, and the Division of Youth Rehabilitative Services. Specifically, I'm the director of the Division of Youth Rehabilitative Services, which is the juvenile justice branch of the agency. So I oversee juvenile probation, I oversee our secure care facilities. So I have a vested interest here in this task force. I'm so glad that the task force was formed. It can definitely benefit some of the youth and families that we serve. So pleasure to represent the department and pleasure to serve on the committee.
Thank you. Ms. Henry, Del Dot.
Good morning, thank you. My name is Wendy Henry. I am representing the Delaware Department of Transportation. I am the Civil Rights Administrator here. In addition to the Department of Transportation, we also have our Delaware Transit Corporation as well. I am the designee for the Cabinet Secretary, Jennifer Cohen. The Civil Rights Group here at DelDOT is responsible for both some of the small business programs, as well as programs that relate to Title VI. And then, of course, we're also looking at environmental justice on this end as well. I am very excited to be able to participate as a member of the task force. This is my first opportunity to be involved. So I'm looking forward to working with everyone on the team. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Benatti, Delaware State
Good
Housing
morning.
Authority.
Good morning, everyone. So my name is Anas Benadi. I'm the director of Delaware State Housing Authority. Just briefly, DSHA is probably one of the smallest state agencies with about 150 employees. So we are a public housing authority. We are also a housing finance agency and a community development. So if you look at the different programs within DSHA, they are mostly about rental and homeownership. But one of the new core services, which I think is relevant here, is the community development, which we have been focusing on being not one size fit all with our policies and our programs, but be mindful of the need of the typical of local communities and try to be flexible, either with existing programs like our initiative to make sure that affordable housing is not concentrated in the distressed area, and we give an opportunity to our families and our constituents in areas of opportunities, but also focusing on distressed areas with initiatives like the Strong Neighborhood Fund that has been targeting vacant properties to stabilize and inject more homeownership opportunities in a meaningful way to make sure that distressed areas are turning around. So I'm looking forward to work with the task force, but especially the subcommittee with Senator Tazzy Lockman.
Thank you. Spencer Price.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. Good morning. My name is Spence Price. I'm the director of the Delaware Statistical Analysis Center. Much like Anas said, we're a very, very small state agency, but we do provide the state with objective research in criminal justice areas in order to kind of facilitate better policy analyses. And we look forward to helping the task force in any capacity that we can with this important topic. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Kimberly Chandler, Department of Safety and Homeland Security.
Good morning. To Representative Bolden and Co-Chair Carley, we certainly thank you for an opportunity to serve on the task force. The Department of Safety and Homeland Security shares similar goals and objectives with the task force. I'm currently serving as the Deputy Secretary, and the department is comprised of several divisions. Some of them are a little more visible than others. One of our largest division would be State Police. We also have Emergency Management. Most of you know that agency by DEMA. So it's certainly involved in our communities from north to south during emergency events, and most recently during the tornado that came through. We're also comprised of Capitol Police, Highway Safety, Alcohol and Tobacco Enforcement, Gaming Enforcement. So we have a public safety homeland security mission. Our other divisions provide support to our public safety community. We also work closely with local law enforcement, our legislators, the AG's office, and several community groups. So we look forward to working with task force members in the days and weeks to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Simone Philpotts, Metropolitan Wilmington Urban League.
Hi, I'm Simone Philpotts. I'm the Policy Director at the Metropolitan Wilmington Urban League. And we have been around for about 20 years now. We are focused on action-oriented public policy research and principal advocacy around economic self-reliance, parity, and civil rights. We recently released a report called The Pace of Progress. It was the second iteration of the report, originally released in 2002. That talked about the disparities faced in the African American and Latino community in Delaware around economic injustice, health inequities, educational inequities, all the breakdowns of the subcommittee. So we're really excited to roll our sleeves up and get involved with policy work in this area.
Much appreciated. Mr. Smith, NAACP.
Richard Thorne, NAACP. I know Reverend Oliver is not present, so their work. I would like to give the opportunity to Representative Kendra Johnson to say a few words. I know she's on the Committee for Health with Minor Brown, and she is present.
Thank you, Representative Bolden. I'm absolutely thrilled to be a part of this body. And as you stated, yes, Representative Minor Brown and I will co-chair the Health and Welfare Subcommittee. Please allow me to just go backwards just for a second, and that I want the public as well as the task force members to know that we are in the process of creating and inviting membership for the subcommittee. Our first ask is we want to make sure that if there are task force members who would like to be a part of the Health and Welfare Subcommittee, we welcome you. And then in addition to that, because we also know now that we have membership limits of 9, in addition to that, we also are putting out an invitation to the general public throughout the state of Delaware to ensure that we have an eclectic mix of stakeholders who can work with us so that we can fulfill the goal of health and welfare. Thank you very much.
Johnson. Representative Cook is also with us. He will be chairing the Law Enforcement Task Force, but Representative, you'd like to make a few comments? Is he still here?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, this is a fine opportunity to go over these different issues dealing with safety and justice, and that I'm elated to work with Representative Tuwoka in this endeavor. And I'm ready to get to work. I know I have a task force of my own that I'm working on at the present moment. And I'm just have to get down and buckle down and get to work and help out as much as I can. And that we get factual and trustful information and data and resources reference to that task force with Representative Tuwoka. So I am glad to be here. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Representative Stephanie Terrific Bolden, for being a chair here. And so I'm ready to get to work.
Thank you, Representative Cook. And our chair, Senator Darius Brown, chair of the Delaware Black Caucus. Is Darius on? Okay, I'm sorry. Is he there? Okay, we'll come back. If Senator Darius Brown, if he's on, we'll come back to him. Avery Jones, Ray Avery Jones was not able to be with us this morning, nor was Vincent Oliver. or Jane Hovington or Representative Hensley, but they are also members of the task force.
Excuse me, Stephanie.
I'm sorry.
I just got on. Richard
Oh,
Smith.
okay.
And then,
Okay. Richard Smith, NAACP president. Thank you.
yes. Good morning, everybody, and to the chairman. The NAACP is glad to be on this committee. We have 14 committees consisting of from criminal justice down to housing. Our committee chairs and some of the best around, from Reverend Sanique Parry to Jay Street to JJ Johnson to experienced people. And we will serve our best, and our concept is to do what we can for the Black community, improve the Black community. And we also have the support of the National NAACP for anything y'all need. We can bring people in, we can ask people to come in, and we can get some of the research that you need to bring to the table. So again, we thank you, and NAACP will serve the committee for you guys. Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Smith. We also have Carmen Jordan Cox, Keith Hunt, and Larry Austin. Are they present? Would like to make a few statements.
Hi, this is Carmen Jordan Cox. Yes, I am present. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm certainly looking forward to serving on this task force. By way of background, I am a retired university vice president, a retired Justice of the Peace Court judge, and I currently serve on the part-time legislative staff for the Delaware Senate Majority Caucus, working on research, policy development, and special projects. Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Bolden, this is Keith Hunt. I make comments.
Just spoke. And Larry?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Okay. My name is Larry Austin. I live in the 20th Senatorial District, which is where Senator Gerald Harker is from, the minority leader. He had asked me to participate in the task force. By way of background, I'm a relatively new resident of Delaware, so I don't have the history that probably all of you, or at least most of you have. I came to Delaware in 2016 from Howard County, Maryland. I worked in Washington, D.C. for 30 years, and prior to that, I lived in Richmond, Virginia. So I don't have a lot of to offer in terms of background in terms of Delaware itself, but certainly look forward to whatever contribution I can make in the mission of this task force.
Thank you, Mr. Austin. Thank you, Mr. Austin. I'm sure you will learn a lot about Delaware, and I'm sure you have some information that you can bring from where you're from, Maryland as well, since we know the Underground Railroad ran from Maryland into Delaware. So there's a lot of sharing that's going on there as well. Okay, are we ready for questions?
I think we're going to do future meetings and then questions. I just want to make sure, because I know Representative Bolden and I were moving around the list. And we want to make sure that we did not miss anyone who did not have an opportunity to speak that sits on the task force. So if there's anyone who either jumped on later or that we may have inadvertently missed that didn't get a chance to speak, please feel free to do so at this point in time and introduce yourself. Okay, looks like Representative Bolden did a great job. So hearing none, let's talk about future meetings. Representative Bolden and myself thought that we would start this off by making sure that we meet with every subcommittee chair before the end of this month. So we'll be reaching out to you individually. And the goal of that meeting is, one, to discuss with you in more depth your goals for your subcommittee, but to also make sure that you have the resources that you need to be successful. And to the extent that you need additional resources, we want to make sure that we find those resources or reach out to make sure that you are successful. That won't be obviously our only meeting. We'll continue to meet throughout the process, with our chairs to make sure that we're addressing the needs of each subcommittee. Additionally, we know that outside of these meetings, obviously, a lot of this work is going to get done at the subcommittee level, but the task force needs to be involved and needs to be updated and needs to know what's going on throughout the process. So we're recommending to the body that we meet at least every other month and receive updates on how the subcommittees are doing and the directions they're going with their findings and recommendations. And hopefully in those meetings, we'll have findings and recommendations to at least discuss or address. But I open it up to the body to see if that is reasonable. We thought any sooner than that would not allow for the time that subcommittees need to do their work. And we want to make sure that there's enough time in between meetings that you can have robust subcommittee conversations and prepare for the meetings of the larger body. But we open it up to the task force for discussion on that.
Any comments?
This is Keith Hunt, if I may.
Mhm.
Representative Kendra Johnson pointed out that she was open to additional membership for the health and welfare. But we also pointed out in opening comments that trying to contain the subcommittees to 9. So the have is what's the protocol as far as raising our hand to participate in the committee without being obtrusive to what the committee chair wants to have and who the committee chair wants to have as a participant. Like to participate in any way that I can or functionally representing the HR expertise that we bring, but don't want to be obtrusive to the number of 9 being the limit. And if we're not, the last point is if we're not on a subcommittee, what role do you expect folks like myself to play in the larger scheme of things?
So the goal, I think, would be to make sure that each of the task force members are on at least one subcommittee. So we'll make sure that that occurs. The reason that we put a number at 9 is, one, we wanted to give some structure and order. That doesn't mean that, and when we say 9, that'll be, the goal is to have that as your working subcommittee. That doesn't mean that there won't be other experts, there won't be other advisors, there won't be other folks that would contribute to your subcommittee. What we were trying to avoid is numbers that were so large that it would be hard to manage. So that's why we're focused on the 9. But again, as I told Representative Walker, we're absolutely flexible in that discussion, and our goal is for the chairs to be successful. There may be times where, because of the amount of work that needs to be done, that these subcommittees might have to be parsed out, and we might have to create additional subcommittees to really get down to the root of what's needed. We're also flexible in that manner as well. We just wanted to give this body some kind of structure moving forward to avoid it being too large. So absolutely, all task force members, we're looking and hoping that each will join a subcommittee, and subcommittee chairs, we're hoping that you, now that you've heard from everyone and heard their background, that you'll be reaching out to your fellow task force members and asking them to join you on your subcommittee. And we're not limiting in no way your ability to just work with one subcommittee. Feel free to work with more than one if your background and time permits. I think what I'll add as well is feel free to email myself, and I'll make sure that everyone in the task force has my email. If you're not on a subcommittee and you're looking for a place to land, feel free to email me directly, and we'll work that out.
I think that, and last follow-up, Mr. Cawley, is, and we should reach out via email to the subcommittee chair to volunteer ourselves. What's the process for that?
I think that,
yeah, I was asking so that we're not caught up on too many different emails. that you email Caitlin, and she will keep a running list of those that want to be on web task force, and that can be submitted to the sub chairs. If we can bring up the slide where it indicates the address in which they can email the next one, where it says future meetings. Okay. Is that on?
It is.
It says task force details. Right. Okay.
Thank you.
That's where you can email the information. That way we'll have it consistent and one person will be handling it.
And we'll also, I know folks have been reaching out to members of the task force, so we'll make sure that all of those names are sent to Caitlin as well, so we have a complete database of all of the folks who want to assist us.
So are there any other comments or questions?
Madam Chair, Mr. Co-Chair, just really quickly, the Economic Empowerment Committee will be meeting on Thursday, September the 3rd at 5 o'clock via Zoom.
What was the location, Representative Walker?
It's going to be Zoom. It's going to be a Zoom
okay.
location. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
And we have the subcommittee pretty much in, like, as I stated a little earlier, asking for a little flexibility. We have about 14 members thus far representing Newcastle, Kent, and Sussex counties.
Great.
But we're always open to people wanting to be a part of the discussion and moving our initiatives forward. Thank you.
I would say, so we don't have to, so you can go forward with your meeting, and that question is not belabored. I would recommend to this body, to the task force, that we allow those 14 members.
Do we need a motion?
I need a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we allow membership of 14 for the Economic Empowerment Subcommittee.
Is there a second?
I second that.
Can you give your name, please?
I'm sorry, this is Representative Kendra Johnson, offering a second.
It's been motioned and second. Is there any question? Then I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 You have to raise your hand, I believe. Everybody, can you just raise your hand? Okay. And you're going to need to hold your hand up so that we can count.
We're still getting used to, or at least I'm still getting used to, votes via the web. Looking at our folks, I think we have those who have.
Is there anyone that abstains? Or voting no?
They're using the raise hand function.
Perfect. Perfect for those who are using the raise hand function. Did we have anyone that raised their hand for no? So seeing no objection, the motion passed.
Thank you to my colleagues. And do you need the names now of those who are on the subcommittee? I did submit them, but would you like them for the record for this particular meeting?
No, if you can just submit them to Caitlin.
Okay, I'll do that again.
All subcommittee members can submit their the names of their committees to Caitlin.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And then we'll distribute them to everyone.
Are there any additional questions from the task force? If not, we'll move to public questions. Seeing none, I believe Caitlin's going to manage the public questions.
So if there are no questions or no further discussion, we'll take a motion to conclude the meeting. Yeah. Do you have them? Public comments and questions.
Good morning, everyone. Any attendee who would like to make a public comment at this time, please use the raise hand function on Zoom to indicate that you would like to speak. I will call on attendees one at a time and will do my best to go in the order in which requests to speak are received. Each attendee will have 2 minutes to speak. I will unmute each speaker one at a time and let the speaker know when 2 minutes is up. Our first speaker will be Kyle Shepard. You are unmuted. You have 2 minutes to speak.
Good morning. I just had a few comments and thank you all for just doing this work. First comment was just for this task force, I hope that we consider to identify, review, and consolidate past relevant commission, task force, or agency organizational reports and what their final recommendations were that align with the work of this effort to identify what's the percentage of recommendations that have or have not been carried out and what's the correlation between implementation or the lack of and what that equates to or contributes to. An example, the Racial Equity Social Justice Collaborative meets, and one of the recommendations that they had was to go over the Division of Public Health and Equity Guide, which provides insight on addressing structural racism and its impact on the social determinants of health. A few other examples are that of the Pace of Progress, I think it was mentioned earlier, as well as the Racial Wealth Divide. Another comment was just to consider including and incentivize the direct involvement by a set percentage of individuals most proximate and currently impacted by the areas of inequity and social determinants identified, considering by zip code or census tract, so that individuals and communities are not simply being studied on, but an active neighborhood partner empowered throughout the entirety of research, legislative, and implementation process. The last comment is that to consider implementation recommendations that translate beyond suggestions, and that it goes into accountable action items by entity with timeframes of execution, including fiscal proposals needed that directly meet the gap in equity being discussed. Lastly, comment is just that COVID-19 and recent state violence and historically magnify the impact of long-standing crises caused by structural racism. But when crises impact everyone, I hope this task force continues to make boldly the case, demanding how African Americans are impacted specifically. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Would anybody else like to give public comment at this time? If so, please use the raise hand function. I'll wait a minute to see if anybody wants to give a comment. It does not appear that anybody has used the raise hand function to give public comment. So, Madam Chair and Mr. Chair, I give it back over to you.
Thank you, Caitlin. If there's no other comments or recommendations at this particular time from any members of the caucus, the task force, then I'll take a motion to conclude this meeting. But prior to that, I'd like to just thank everyone for taking the time out of your schedule. I know there have been numerous Zoom meetings that you've had, and it's just very important that we get this task force going with everything that's happening now, what's in the news, what's going on in other communities. It's important that I feel we get the history out here in the state of Delaware about African Americans and their contributions that they've given, as well as looking at what's going on with education. Are we going to go virtual, or are we going to have classes? Whatever. We're looking at some of the universities that are reopening, what's happening there, but we need to get the information out so people are more informed about what's going on, and also any suggestions from all the numerous committees that we have here going forward that we may be able to implement or assist in the implementation of getting us back on track here in the state of Delaware. So again, thank you so very much for taking time out of your schedule and for being a part of this task force. And I look forward to more meetings with the subcommittees and with the task force as a whole as we bring back information and hopefully whether it ends up with legislation or recommendations going forward into the new year.
And likewise, I just want to echo the sentiments of my co-chair. I've had the blessing of working with most of the members of the task force on initiatives throughout the years. And it's an absolute blessing to have the opportunity to do so again for such a worthwhile initiative. So I really look forward to the hard work we have ahead and look forward to the outcomes of that hard work. So thank you all. And thank you to everyone who has joined us today and who will help us in the future. Much appreciated.
Thanks so much.
We still need a motion. Thank you.
Oh.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
You need to identify yourself.
The motion was made by Ron K. He's now the 4 point of our focus of our meeting. And it was seconded by, I didn't hear the second.
It was Senator Lockman and Rep. Dorsey Walker.
Simultaneous.
Perfect.
Yes.
All those in
Third
favor?
district.
Aye.
Aye, thank you.
All right, motion passed. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a good day. Don't forget to wear your mask.
Thank you, everyone.